Been following the Pontiff's visit closely in Nairobi, and we chat to her now. Good afternoon, Sarah, and welcome to the News Today desk.
Thank you very much for having me, and a very good afternoon from Nairobi.
Sarah, this is definitely not a pope to mince his words. He's often been frank, very open with the media contingent on issues of racial and economic inequality. Did he make any reference perhaps to alleged corruption and the need for more transparent, accountable leadership in Kenya right now?
Yes, since yesterday when he landed in the country, the Pope's message has resonated with Kenyans, probably because he has spoken about issues that are close to their heart. Yesterday when he got into the country, he spoke about issues of transparency and integrity. And this morning when he held a mass, an open-air mass where thousands of people braved heavy rains to attend, he spoke about issues of the family, saying that the family is a unit of any nation's cohesion and the formation of any nation. He spoke about the need for people to be selfless, to deny themselves, speaking about leaders who should be able to give themselves and think about their country and think about their people ahead of themselves. He also touched on issues of terrorism when he met leaders from different faiths, including Muslim leaders, saying there is need to involve the youth in dialogue and for leaders in various religious groups to have dialogue, saying that way. And that is the only way, he says, that the youth will continue to develop the country rather than being taken advantage of and being radicalized.
Sarah, Pope Francis largely hailed as a champion of the poor as well. And he does have a very genuine capacity to reach out to those even outside the European continent and to endear himself to people. Now, we do understand that there's a visit to the Kangemi slum that's on the cards. Do we know when that visit will happen, Sarah? And just take us through the Pope's program further.
Well, that visit to Kangemi slums will be tomorrow, but before then he will meet thousands of youth at a stadium here in Nairobi. I'm sure during that visit he will definitely speak again about the growth of the Catholic Church. In Kenya, there are 14 million Catholics out of a population of 42 million. There are about 900 parishes, and the Catholic Church in Kenya is quite old, more than 100 years. It is the same case in Uganda, the same case in the Central African Republic. In fact, research that has been done has shown that the Catholic Church in Africa will be having a population of almost 500 million in the next 20 years. And therefore, it is clear that he cannot ignore the Catholic Church or the Catholic faithful in Africa. And he spoke about that today morning when he spoke at the open-air mass, saying that indeed the future of the church, the Catholic Church, is here in Africa. And he asked the Kenyan faithful, the Kenyan Catholic faithful, to remain firm in their faith, saying that the reason he chose to visit Africa at this particular time is to encourage them to remain firm in their faith. When he goes to Kangemi tomorrow, he will be meeting very poor people, he will be meeting people who are ailing, but also because this is one of his messages. He is a Jesuit priest, and Jesuits are known to have made vows of chastity, vows of poverty and selflessness. And so he will continue with that message when he goes to Kasarani. But this afternoon, as we speak, he is now heading to the United Nations Environment Program to speak to officials there about issues of climate change and global warming, issues that are also very close to his heart. And he is in the home of Professor Wangari Maathai, the late Professor Wangari Maathai, a champion of the environment, and she has been spoken a lot about since the arrival of the Pope here.
Yes, Sarah, that climate change conference on the cards in Paris in just a few days, on November 30th, I believe, and the Pope will touch on the need for the developed world to stop abusing the planet for profit at the expense of the poor, like you mentioned. But we need to remember that this is a pontiff that also helped broker more cordial ties between the US and Cuba last year, really proving the Vatican as a diplomatic powerhouse, that is. And now Pope Francis, we see him trying to encourage tolerance amid a rise in militant violence in Kenya right now.
Yes, indeed, he mentioned it himself, and he says that his meeting today with members of different religious groupings, the Muslims, the Hindus, traditional leaders from here in Kenya, the Anglicans, the Protestants. For him, he says that meeting should be a symbol of him being ready to work with any religious leaders, being able to work with anybody, if only to bring together parties, if only to bring together religious groupings that sometimes have differences. He pointed out, and he himself said he knows that it is not easy for religious groupings to work together sometimes, but he says the only way there can be unity on the continent in Africa is if there is dialogue. He spoke about Central African Republic, he spoke about Uganda and Kenya, and particularly in Kenya he spoke about the Westgate attacks where 67 people were killed, and the most recent, the Garissa University attack, where 147 students were killed. And he said these are evil people who take advantage of Islam. And so he was saying that it is important that religious leaders reach out to each other, and that Muslim leaders reach out to the youth so that they are not radicalized or taken advantage of by people who may want to use Islam as a religion of violence.
Thank you, Sarah. That was our correspondent, Sarah Kimani. She's been tracking the Pontiff's visit closely, and we might chat to her a little bit later on in the